Phil in Cheshire, Connecticut, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, Phil, what's on your mind today?
Hi, I'm a physician, and I wanted to talk about drug prices for a second.
Please.
So many different angles to come at it from, but specifically talking about the EpiPen, I see people in the emergency room who have just had their first serious allergic reaction to something, and they are clearly going to need to start carrying an EpiPen with them.
Right.
And pretty often when I prescribe that, they already know. This is before all these articles came out. They'll say, "Do you know how much an EpiPen costs?" And I say, "Yeah, I do. I can't do anything about that." But it's disgusting to me that drug companies really don't care about whether somebody can afford it or not, about whether maybe somebody might die because they can't afford it. They just, they want their $2 million salary to go to $18 million salary.
Right. Which is what Heather Bresch is her name, I think, Joe Manchin's daughter. The woman is the CEO of this company.
Yeah, and the daughter of the Democratic senator from West Virginia, unfortunately.
Right.
And this has actually been the case forever. When I was a pre-med student, I was involved in a Saul Alinsky group in Chicago, which organized a forum on drug prices, and I ended up chairing this forum, and one of the people on the panel was the vice president for development from Abbott Laboratories, and some of the medical students were pressing him on this issue of, well, how can you justify these high prices? And he finally said, well, we are in it for the money, No, he said we are in it to win it,
Right.
And that was a watershed moment for everybody in the room. And as far as solutions go, I think that there needs to be. I think that we should regulate drugs the same way we regulate public utilities. If your local electric company wants to raise rates, they have to go to a regulatory board and justify why the rates are going up.
Right.
And that's I think it's not a perfect solution because, as we know, regulatory commissions don't always do their job either. But at least it would be a break on these totally random, unjustifiable raises in
and
price.
variations of that are done in every other country in the world, Phil. We're the village idiots here. We are the United States of America is the only country in the world that has unregulated drug prices. And so the very same company that's selling a drug in Germany for $5 is selling that drug in the United States for $100 just because they can.
The other thing that's happened also is that this move towards generic drugs, Walmart and Costco and Target and so forth having their $4 drug list, well, the generic companies have noticed that, hey, we could be making a lot more money, and they've been raising their prices. And if you look at the list now compared to what it was 5 years ago, there are actually fewer products on that list because they've priced themselves off of the $4.
And you know what preceded that, Phil, is many of the generic drug companies were bought by the major brand name drug companies.
Exactly.
They continue to operate under a secondary name, and you don't realize. But and I mean, the ultimate generic drug is, am I saying it right? Is epinephrine?
Epinephrine.
Epinephrine. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff.
Epinephrine and adrenaline actually mean the same thing. Epinephrine. Nephrin refers to kidney. Epi refers to next to because it's a little gland that's next to the
adrenal.
Kidney. And adrenal, renal, kidney, add next to it. It means the same thing. One's a Greek root and the other's a Latin root.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but the epinephrine is like the ultimate generic drug. I mean, it was developed in 1898.
Yeah. So what I've decided I'm going to start doing in my practice is if there's any issue about whether somebody can pay for an EpiPen, I'm going to discuss this frankly and explicitly with them, and if they can't, I'm going to prescribe what's called an Epi kit, which is a little glass ampoule of epinephrine and a syringe, etc. and teach them how to use it, just like we teach people how to use, asthma inhalers and so forth.
Right. Well, and like for diabetics, insulin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what, a couple dollars a dose?
Well, by the time you get it retail at the pharmacy, it's probably $30 or something like that. But that's still not,
It's a hell of a lot different from $600.
And of course, the other thing that they've done that's so quote unquote brilliant is now you don't just buy one EpiPen. Now they come in boxes of 2 EpiPens.
Right.
And so they can further increase the price, the money that they're getting, because you're not just getting one, you're getting 2.
Well, they argue that the reason for that is that you take the first EpiPen and exhaust it into you, and that will sustain you if you've got a really severe anaphylactic reaction. That could sustain you for 15, 20 minutes, a half hour, whatever. But if you don't get to some place where they can give you a second injection, you might be in trouble, and that's why you've got to have the second one. Does that make sense?
I ask people, are you ever in situations where you might be more than 20 minutes or half an hour from meeting up with a paramedic? It doesn't even have to be a hospital,
right?
But meeting up with a paramedic. Like, do you go hiking in the woods or?
Right. So in other words, most people don't actually need 2 of them. Yeah. Phil, we're out of time, but thank you for the call. Thanks for listening to SiriusXM.